If you're new here, welcome. This corner of the internet is where we sit with the messy, beautiful truth of families, how love holds, how boundaries save, how both can exist in the same heartbeat. If you find something of yourself in these stories, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing a line that stayed with you. It helps more than you know. Tonight's story is titled, The Night My Daughter-in-Law Asked Me to Buy a Miracle. The message arrived at 12:07 a.m., a blue glow that split my bedroom like a seam ripper. Mom, she wrote, and then because that word has 1,000 meanings, she chose the one she needed. If you love your grandson, please donate another $10,000 to the GoFundMe. We're so close. God will bless you for this. Under the text sat three attachments. The first was a photo of a small boy with an oxygen cannula looped over his cheeks, his lashes a dark fan against chalky skin. The second was a hospital invoice with numbers that looked like a skyscraper skyline. The third was a shot of a hand, my daughter-in-law's, cupping a paper bracelet stamped with barcodes and a name I knew by heart. I am 68, which is old enough to know how midnight makes please sound holier and how screens make everything look truer than it is. Still, I did what grandmothers do. I sat up. I found my glasses. I set my feet on the rug and let the house remember I was awake. Her comment bubbled a moment later. Insurance is dragging its feet. The campaign's trending. If we hit the goal before morning, they'll move the surgery up. Please, Mom, he needs us. There are certain sentences that fuel a mother's heart like dry timber. He needs us is one of them. I padded to the kitchen and warmed yesterday's coffee, a habit my late husband fought for 43 years and never won. While the microwave hummed, I opened the photos again, slower. The hospital room was almost artful. Gleaming floors, crisp linens, a monitor tucked just out of frame like a shy actor refusing his cue. The boy's face was turned to the good light. The tubing was snug, no tape lifting at the edges, no redness where plastic bites into soft skin. It was, if I'm honest, a beautiful kind of terrible. I scrolled to the invoice. There were line items, codes, a due-by date in a red font meant to hurry the blood. Estimated charges, it read. Immediate payment appreciated. I could feel the old reflex reaching for my checkbook, the way a hand reaches for a railing in the dark. You must understand, this wasn't my first midnight rescue. I had paid for fevers and flat tires for a semester that turned out not to be a semester and a deposit that turned out not to be refundable. I had bought groceries and wedding centerpieces and once a promise. Promises are the most expensive thing to buy. They come with interest. The phone buzzed again. A voicemail. Her voice breathless, stitched with tears and something sharper. I know it's late. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent. The campaign's at 23,000. 10 more and we cross the threshold for priority approval. Please help us get there. For him? For him? The way she said it, as if my love could be measured in dollars and then wired through an app. In my living room, the mantel clock took its time with the next minute. I thought of the day my grandson was born, when a nurse handed him to me and he opened his face like a book. I thought of how children don't know your ledger, they only know your lap. The world teaches them the math later. When my husband died, I promised myself two things. I would be generous and I would be careful. He used to say that the trick of marriage is learning when to bend and when to brace. I have discovered widowhood is the same. I pinched the first photo wider. The cannula arced from his cheeks to somewhere off camera. No Roman IV pole in sight. No tape fuzzed from the brush of blankets. No careless clutter. The half-drunk apple juice, the extra blanket, the crooked sticker with a giraffe saying be brave. Hospitals, I have learned, are terribly human places. This room looked like it had been cleaned for company. I swiped to the invoice again and traced a finger down the charges. Numbers can be a kind of prayer. You line them up. You ask them to be kind. The fonts were familiar, the same type I'd seen on a physical therapy bill and a pneumonia stay last winter. But something in the kerning felt off, like a face you recognize from church wearing someone else's smile. I opened the third photo, the bracelet cradled in her hand. A mother's hand tells on her. It carries nicks from the can opener, calluses from living. Hers looked camera-ready, nails buffed pale pink, a ring that caught the overhead light just so. The paper band resting in her palm as gently as a promise. A smaller text came in, almost a whisper beside the larger ask. We wouldn't need this if the hospital weren't so heartless. They make it impossible for families. You understand better than anyone. It was a smart sentence. It reached for my history the way Ivy reaches for brick. She was right. I do understand what it is to stand in a hallway with bad news in your pocket and no one to hand it to. I do understand how bills can feel like a verdict. I carried my coffee to the window. The street was the color of an old photograph. Somewhere a dog sighed. Somewhere a train stitched the edges of town together with a low, patient line. I could give the money. Of course I could. 10,000 is a mountain until it's your grandchild on the other side. Then it's a tunnel you start digging with your bare hands. The thing about midnight is that it makes you brave and foolish in equal measure. It quiets the noise so you can hear what you already know. I tapped the first photo again and let my thumb hover over my grandson's cheek. The cannula tubing, clear, neat, unbothered by breath. The pulse ox clip absent, the monitor stage shy. The shadows too soft, as if the room had been lit for a catalog. And between the folds of the blanket, a corner of something white and square, the kind of square my phone makes when it takes a picture. Tidy, flattened, composed. I thought of all the times I had believed because it was kinder to believe. I thought of the last time I looked away from a detail because the story needed me to. Another message slid in. Can you send it before one? The algorithm bumps campaigns that hit goals fast. The algorithm, the hospital, the child, my love, all braided together like twine pulling at me in the dark. Please, Mom, she wrote again as if the second please could tip the world. I set down my cup. I pulled the first image up one more time and let the screen fill with that quiet, heartbreaking scene. Then I did what I have learned to do when something inside me tilts. I stopped looking at the child and I looked at the edges. That's where the truth likes to hide. I pinched to zoom, past the blanket nap, past the tidy crease, until the pixels began to show their seams. And there, in the corner that most eyes would skip, a small detail caught and would not let go. Something was wrong with the picture. The wrong thing in a picture never starts in the picture. It starts years earlier, in a habit you called kindness and a promise you called love. When my son was little, I used to pay the copay with quarters. $40 in a sandwich bag, counted out on a counter sticky with lollipops and waiting room magazines. You don't have to do that, the receptionist would say, embarrassed for me. I know, I'd smile, embarrassed for myself. I learned early that money is just a language families use to talk about care. Some of us are fluent, some of us fake it and hope no one hears our grammar. By the time he married, we had both learned other languages, his the quickened breath of ambition, mine the steady hush of making do. When the engagement came, there were toasts and playlists and a spreadsheet that looked like snow if you stood far enough away. I put down the deposits for the venue and the band, $4. 200 on a card with my husband's name, still engraved in small, tidy letters. I told myself it was tradition, that parents help with weddings, that joy deserves a head start. After the honeymoon, there were the polite emergencies, the ones that arrive with their hats in their hands. A tire, a tooth, a stretch of bad luck that would surely end next month. An urgent care visit for a fever that turned into a weekend stay, $2. 480 after insurance did what insurance does. We'll pay you back, they said, a sentence people offer the way you offer a tissue to someone already weeping. When my husband died, grief came with a ledger. I kept the lights on and the house quiet. The first Christmas without him, my daughter-in-law wrapped her arms around me and said, "You'll always have a place with us, always." Words like that are heavy when you first receive them, small anchors in a storm. You don't test their length until the sea is calm again. 3 years slid by like mail under a door. Groceries appeared on their porch because I cannot stand the sound of an empty refrigerator. The water bill found my online banking because I have always believed dishes should be washed in warm water. A brace of small payments shored up fragile weeks, $180 for a field trip, $95 for prescription, $300 when the car sounded like a cough. These are not large numbers until you count them in seasons. There were bigger things too. The gallbladder surgery when insurance lapsed, a word that sounds like a nap and feels like a fall. I remember standing under the hospital's fluorescent halo with a clerk whose name tag said Grace, and writing a check for $6, 800 because I could, and because no one should memorize the smell of bile. I carried the receipt home like a relic and tucked it where I keep birth certificates and report cards, the paper trail of a life. If you are generous long enough, generosity turns invisible. People stop noticing the way the porch light stays on. They only notice the night. I don't say that to accuse. I say it to remind myself that I helped build this. Every just this once, every of course, every don't worry about it. These were stones in a path that led us here. Love laid them. So did fear. So did pride. On Sundays we ate together. My grandson would climb into my lap with the graceless trust of children and tell me about dinosaurs that were birds and birds that were spies. My son would talk about promotions like hills he meant to climb. My daughter-in-law would show me throw pillows on her phone the way some women show wedding dresses, soft, aspirational, a future you can lean your head on. After dessert, she always took my hand. "You're our family," she'd say. Always. I never asked what always meant or whether it had a budget. There were good months. There are always good months when the overtime hits, when tax refunds arrive like a late spring. In those months, my son would reach for the check at dinner and say, "This one's on me, Ma," with a pride that made the steak taste better. In those months, my daughter-in-law texted photos of my grandson with gap-toothed grins and chocolate mustaches and captions like our miracle. I would kiss the screen and put the phone face down as if it might fall asleep. But the slope was there, gentle and constant. "Until we're back on our feet" became a lullaby for bills. "We'll settle up soon" became a promise that did not check a calendar. When you love someone, you learn to live with the arithmetic that doesn't add up. You round up their effort and round down the cost. I remember a spring afternoon when my daughter-in-law and I sat in the car outside a pharmacy. She was staring at a total on a tiny screen, as if looking harder might subtract something. "They make it impossible for families," she said. They shifted depending on the day. Corporations, landlords, teachers, God. "We're doing our best." "I know," I said, and I did. Bests are different sizes in different seasons. The trick is knowing when your best needs to be bigger and when your best needs to be braver. You might think I resented it. I didn't. I come from women who sent $10 in envelopes and signed their names like blessings. I come from men who fixed what could be fixed with duct tape and prayer and called the rest character. Helping is the way my hands know they still belong to someone. It is the way I keep my marriage from ending just because I am the only one left in it. But something happens over time when love keeps writing checks and never reads the fine print. The line between gift and subsidy blurs. Your yes starts to carry the weight of an expectation. A good heart can develop a limp and not notice until the weather changes. At the wedding rehearsal, my daughter-in-law hugged me in a hallway that smelled of eucalyptus and hairspray. "I mean it," she said. "We're a family. There will always be room for you." She had tears in her eyes, and I believed them. Tears are like lights on water. They make everything look truer. I pressed a small envelope into her hand because that is what mothers do at weddings. Inside were bills smoothed with the reverence we save for church and funerals. She squeezed my fingers. "You didn't have to." We both knew that I did. In the years that followed, our text thread filled with little asks and little answers. "Could you pick up?" "Of course." "Any chance you could cover?" "I've got it." "We're short this month." "I'll swing by." I began to think of my help as a bridge and theirs as a car that never quite made it to the other side. Which brings us to the night her message arrived at 12:07 a.m., dressed in urgency and lit by sanctity. $10,000, a child in need, an algorithm that rewards speed. The kind of need that doesn't just knock on a grandmother's door, it sets the hinges buzzing. If you're looking for villains, you will not find them here. You will find a young couple who wanted the soft life their friends framed in sepia on social media. You will find a widow with a soft spot where a husband used to be, and a boy whose laughter could bankrupt anyone. You will find a country where bills arrive faster than wisdom and an internet trained to press the bruise until it pays out. I say all of this so you'll understand that midnight didn't invent this ask. It only underlined it. I stood at the kitchen sink with my coffee and my caution. I thought of the quarters in the sandwich bag and the copay on the sticky counter and the way love learns to count. I thought of that promise in the hallway, "You'll always have a place with us," and how always is a long time to keep the lights on. On the table lay a small stack of envelopes, water, gas, the card with my husband's small, tidy name. I put my hand on them as if paper could take a pulse. People believe money is cold, but it's the warmest thing in a house. It moves. It hums, it keeps. The picture on my phone waited, patient as a fisherman. I looked at my grandson's face and felt my wallet open the way a prayer opens, without math. Then I looked at the edges, the way I've learned to do when love makes me brave and foolish at once. It had been a long time since I read our story like a bill instead of a blessing. It was time to look closely at what exactly I was paying for. Suspicion does not arrive with sirens. It comes like a draft under a door, thin, persistent, easy to ignore if you're busy making soup. I stood in my kitchen with the phone cradled in my palm and the photos bright as promises. The boy, the invoice, the bracelet, my love wanted to sign, my caution asked for ID. I wrote back the gentlest truth I knew. Tell me the hospital, sweetheart. I'll bring coffee to the night nurse. And the surgeon's name if you have it. I like to pray for people by name. Three little dots appeared, then vanished. Appeared again as if my question were a heavy box being lifted, then set down. They're moving him around a lot, she finally typed. It's complicated. We're not supposed to have visitors. HIPAA is so strict. Honestly, what we need most is to hit the goal before morning. That's how these things get approved. HIPAA, the hospital, the algorithm, the new trinity. I could hear my husband chuckle from the far side of memory. That's a lot of saints for one prayer. I tried a different door. What room is he in? I won't come in if it's a problem. I can sit in the lobby and knit. I'm good at waiting. They're keeping us in a special unit, she said. No cell service down here. It's a miracle I got the photos out. Please, Mom, we can talk later. The system bumps campaigns that hit fast. 10,000 closes the gap. 10,000. Because love makes round numbers feel reasonable. I pinched the hospital image wider until my grandson's cheek filled the screen. The cannula sat easy, like jewelry. No redness, no dampness where the tape should pull. In the corner, the blanket's fold made a perfect triangle. I have ironed my share of linens. Hospitals do not have time for triangles. I slid to the invoice again. There was a Dubai date in bright red, the font aggressive as a parking ticket. The line items lined up like well-behaved children. The hospital logo in the corner looked familiar and not, like a neighbor with a new haircut. What caught me wasn't any one thing. It was how tidy the whole crisis seemed. Real pain is messy. It drops crumbs of itself everywhere. She sent a follow-up with the kind of emphasis you use when you're trying to convince a vending machine to be kind. If you could send it before one, the bump will kick us to the front page. That visibility is everything. I thought about visibility, how darkness can hide the worst things, and how bright lights can too. The clock above my stove clicked clumsily from 12:28 to 12:29. Old clocks always sound like they're doing you a favor. I set my coffee down and did what widows do. I made a small list on a napkin. Hospital, doctor, room. Lists make me feel like there is a handle somewhere on a door. I tried once more. The bracelet, could you send the other side? I want to write his full name in my prayer book, and the unit number. I'll mail something for the nurse's station tomorrow. She sent a heart. Then, I'm with him now, he's finally resting. Please don't make me explain everything, just help us get there. If love is a muscle, guilt is the weight it lifts when no one's watching. I felt the burn in my shoulders, that old familiar strain. I sat at the table, opened the photos again, and let the screen light my hands. On my phone there is a small letter, I, in a circle, the most modest of investigators. I tapped it and the picture shrank obediently to make space for its secrets. Taken 9:52 p.m., the phone told me. A little map icon slept beside it, blank as a winter field. No location, no lens, saved image. 9:52. A full 2 hours before her midnight plea. It meant nothing by itself. Phones cough up old photos all the time. People send what they can when their hands are shaking. I do not build gallows out of one board. I closed details and opened it again, the way you check a pulse twice because hope miscounts. Saved image. I tapped the tiny arrow, shared via messages. The file name wore the kind of hat you buy at the last minute. IM 2022, the year made me pause. Phones are sentimental creatures. They hoard seasons, or maybe mine does because I asked it to. But this was my daughter-in-law's photo, not mine. And my grandson did not wear oxygen in 2022. He wore dinosaur pajamas and peanut butter smiles. The bracelet shot told me less. Saved image. No time, no place. The paper band in her palm looked new, as if it had not yet learned the shape of her wrist. The invoice was a PDF shared from files with a created time stamped that afternoon. I tapped again and a line of tiny print scrolled by, the way credits do when a movie hopes you're already putting on your coat. Created with, and then a word I recognized from church bulletins and bake sale posters. An app for pretty things? I leaned back, letting the chair complain. Doubt is not a verdict, it is a request for more light. My phone buzzed on cue. Did you see my last text? She wrote. The gap is exactly $10,000. If we can close it, the hospital will move us up. Please? I could have sent the money. I have sent it before with less explanation and more faith. But tonight, some small clerk inside me stamped a form pending and slid it into a file. The clerk was not unkind. She was tired of signing in the dark. I typed slowly. Sweetheart, I love him. You know I do. I will help, but I need to know where he is. I will not bother anyone. I will not post. I will not call. I just want to know the name on the door. 3 dots, gone, 3 dots, gone again. If hesitation were a sound, it would be the small wave a body makes when it swallows the truth. They asked us not to share specifics, she wrote at last. There are reasons. Please don't make this harder. Reasons, a soft word with sharp teeth. I walked to the window and watched my street hold its breath. A train moaned somewhere past town, drawing a long underline under the night. In the glass, I could see my reflection. An old woman with a phone, a stovetop clock that meant well, a hand that had written a lot of checks, and a heart that still believed in miracles. I am not a detective. I am a mother whose curiosity has been purchased and repurchased by love. That should count for something. It should also count as a warning. I went back to the table, opened the pictures one more time, and pressed on the small circle with the small eye, the politest keyhole you will ever peer through. I let the screen shrink, then I followed the faint trail that facts leave when they are trying to be found. Then I did something I had not done in these 3 years of rescues and replies. I saved the photos to a folder with a name I would remember in the morning. I set the phone down. I picked it up again. I tapped details. And I read every line like a prayer I wasn't sure I believed in. And there, tucked in the fine print, 4 quiet words waited for me like a light under a door I had never tried. I tapped them, and everything I thought I knew about that beautiful, terrible picture began to move. The 4 small words were humble as a doorman, more info available. I tapped them, and the photo, my grandson's pale cheek, the graceful loop of clear tubing, shrunk to make room for a few new lines. Saved image, shared via messages. A creation time, and beneath it, a string of silent numbers that mean everything to people who speak fluent metadata. I am not that person. I am, however, a woman who learned to read an EKG the year my husband's heart forgot a step. If love wants someone long enough, it picks up a few trades. I forwarded the pictures to my laptop, the way one might carry a problem to a bigger table. The house had that late-night hush when even the refrigerator respects grief. I cleared a space, found a yellow legal pad, and wrote a title in the margin the way my old teachers taught me to. Things I know, things I don't. Under no, the text arrived at 12:07 a.m. The photos were saved, not taken live. The invoice was a PDF created earlier that day, by an app I recognized from church bake sale flyers and block party posters. Under don't, which hospital, which doctor? Why the room looked like a catalog, painstaged for good lighting. There's a small trick anyone can learn, the way my grandmother taught me to sew on a button. You can ask the internet, politely, have you seen this face before? They call it a reverse image search, which sounds like witchcraft and is mostly manners. You show a picture, it introduces you to its cousins. I fed the first photo, oxygen cannula, smooth blankets, light like a Sunday morning, into the box that waits for such things. It thought for a moment, then offered me a handful of echoes. A pediatric brochure from 3 years ago. a health blogs piece on croup, a stock library entry titled Child with Nasal Cannula, Hospital Bed. The angles were not identical, but they were siblings. The same kind of room, the same spotless quilt of sadness. Even the color temperature matched, cool, kind, designed to make you believe in stainless steel. I tried the invoice next. PDFs don't have faces, but fonts do. Hospitals use a certain family of type the way schools do. Practical, unglamorous, too tired to show off. The PDF on my screen wore a font that had clearly blow-dried its hair. The logo in the corner had just enough wrong in it to make my eye itch. Spacing, a line weight, the way the R sat too close to the E like they were whispering in class. I called the hospital I believed they'd use, the same one that set my husband's heart back to a marching rhythm once upon a long night. The switchboard answered with the voice of every switchboard, professional warmth riding a hard chair. "Billing, please," I said. A different voice came on, the kind you picture with sensible shoes. I gave my name. I did not give hers. She did not give mine. We were two women in the middle of the night, certain of our manners. "I don't want any private information," I began. "I know you can't give that. I only want to ask about formatting on an invoice someone sent me. I'm trying to do the right thing." She let the sentence sit a moment, the way a nurse lets your blood pressure settle before calling it what it is. "Okay," she said, "what do you have?" I read her the account number, the way it marched across the top, INV 34,729. The date. The bold red Dubai that blinked like a taillight. "We don't use INV," she said. "Ever, our numbers are digits only, and due dates aren't in red." "Do you list charges as estimated?" I asked, remembering the soft word with hard teeth. "No," she said gently. "We bill for what we did." We both went quiet then. Some silences are dangerous. This one was kind. It offered me a place to put my next question without dropping it. "Could someone there tell me," I said, "whether a patient exists if I gave you a name and a date of birth? I'm the grandmother." "I can't confirm treatment," she said, "but if you read me an account number and DOB from a bill you received, I can tell you if it matches our system. That's not protected. That's a billing discrepancy." I read my grandson's full name as if I were baptizing him again, then his birthday, which I carry in my mouth like a prayer. I gave her the account number exactly as it flaunted itself on the page. Letters, dash, numbers. Somewhere on the other end of the line, keys made their small, dutiful rain. "Nothing under that account format," she said after a moment. "Nothing with that number, and if I search by name and date of birth, no active or recent admissions." She paused, then added what good people add when policy runs out and kindness begins. "I'm sorry. If someone is telling you otherwise, they may not be telling you the truth." I thanked her. I wrote no record on my pad and drew a box around it. It is possible to love someone and still put a box around a fact with a hard pencil. I hung up and stared at the laptop. It stared back, innocent as a window. I opened the bracelet photo and did the small, careful things, zoomed on the barcodes too clean, on the adhesive too perfect, on the paper sheen too new. The hospital where my husband learned to keep time again uses wristbands with a tiny color strip for allergies. It's the sort of detail you only notice if you've spent a night memorizing a monitor. The bracelet in the photo had no such strip. Maybe another hospital, I told myself. Maybe a new vendor. Maybe, the lullaby we sing to common sense. My phone buzzed where I'd left it by the coffee maker. A new message from her, just checking. "Did you send it? We're so close, Mom. The supporters are watching the total tick up. 10,000 gets us there." I let the message sit. I am learning to let things sit. My husband used to say bread rises better if you stop peeking under the towel. Sometimes answers do too. I printed the PDF and held it up to the kitchen light. Paper is honest when you let light through it. The kerning still misbehaved. The hospital's return address was correct, but the suite number didn't exist. A quick check on the hospital's own website confirmed that billing was in a different building. I circled it with a pen the way a teacher circles a misspelled word, not to shame, but to save. On the screen, my grandson's cannula still arced like a smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. I closed the laptop, because I am a grandmother before I am a detective, and sometimes you have to shut the door on a room to remember the rest of your house. I walked the length of my hallway and back, past the photographs of lives that knew what to do with the truth when they found it. I poured the last of the coffee, now as tired as I was, and carried it to the table where the legal pad waited. Under don't. I wrote why, not the philosophical why, the practical one. Why choose a stock looking scene? Why doctor a bill when real ones arrive by the armful in this country? Why ask for number so round it sounds like a drum? The clock on the stove stumbled to 1:03. The house settled its shoulders. I picked up the phone and did the plainest thing. I called the hospital back, asked for admissions, and, after the same dance of courtesy, repeated the name and date of birth to a different pair of sensible shoes. Her keyboard made the same rain. "We can't discuss care," she said, "but we can tell you if your billing document matches an active account. It doesn't, and I see no inpatient records for that name in the past year." Outside, a train shouldered through town and the night put its arm around itself. There was a long pause on the line, and then, with the gentleness of someone who has seen families do strange arithmetic when love and money share a table, the woman cleared her throat. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said. "There is no patient in our system matching that information." By 2 in the morning, I had facts that wouldn't hold hands with the story. That is when you stop arguing with the wind and start closing windows. I called my attorney. She is one of those women whose voice can fold a crisis into quarters and put it neatly in a drawer. "Don't accuse," she said, the way a nurse says, "breathe first. Preserve." "How?" I asked and found a pen. "Start a timeline, every call, every text, every dollar and minute. Save the photos exactly as received, don't edit them. Take screenshots of your message threads with visible dates and times. Screen record the GoFundMe page, scroll from top to bottom so the URL, total amount, and campaign text are captured in one take. Save the page to PDF. If there are videos or stories on other apps, record those too, and print everything." I could hear her tapping keys. "Next, write down the 2 phone calls with the hospital. Names if you have them, departments if you don't. The law doesn't require a perfect memory, it asks for good notes." "What about calls with her?" I asked. "That depends where you live," she said. "Consent laws vary. Here you may record your own conversations, but only if you are a party to them. If you call and you record, begin by saying so, or better, keep it in writing. Text leaves footprints." She paused. "I know this is your family, so I'm going to say this once with love. Don't send a penny tonight." "I won't," I said, though a part of me still wanted to. "Finally," she said, "read the platform's rules. GoFundMe, Give, Send, Go, all of them. Misrepresentation and fraudulent campaigns violate their terms. If there's enough to worry a reasonable person, they can freeze funds and, in some cases, refund donors. But give them something to work with. Think like a librarian preparing a box for the archive." A box for the archive. That is a kind way to think about pain. I set the phone down and made my little house into a records room. The printer blinked awake like an old dog willing to try. I printed the campaign page, the invoice, our text thread in long, ugly strips of bubbles that looked innocent until you read them in order. I ran a screen recorder as I scrolled the fundraiser, title, goal, organizer's name, the photo of my grandson with his tidy cannula, the paragraph about urgent surgery, the updates that read like someone trying to keep a drumbeat steady. "We're almost there. He needs us." I saved the files twice, once to the computer, once to a thumb drive I labeled with blue tape and my shaky midnight handwriting, "Miracle Evidence." I slipped the drive into an envelope because small things get lost when truth starts moving. On my yellow legal pad, I built the timeline, 12:07 a.m. Text requesting $10,000, 12:28. Follow up about the algorithm, 12:34. My questions about hospital and doctor, 12:49. Her answers full of saints, HIPAA, the system, the bump, 12:55. First hospital call billing, 1:03. Second hospital call admissions. Under each, I wrote what I learned, and under that, I wrote what I did not. Then I went to the platform's help pages. Terms of service are bedtime stories for lawyers, but I read them the way my husband used to read owner's manuals. Not for pleasure, for safety. There it was in plain language. Campaigns must be honest. You may not raise money under false pretenses. The company can suspend or remove campaigns, freeze withdrawals, and work with banks to return contributions if fraud is substantiated. They called it prohibited conduct. I circled the phrase misleading or inaccurate content until the ink pooled. A thought came that felt both small and necessary. The $50 test donation I'd sent earlier. I logged into my card account and flagged the charge for review, not to punish, but to plant a flag in the sand. If the tide changed, someone would know where to measure from. On the table, the printed photos cooled to room temperature. Paper is the most patient witness we have. My attorney texted again. One more thing. Send the platform a preservation request. Ask them to retain all logs, IP addresses, edit histories, withdrawal records associated with the campaign. You're not accusing, you're asking them to hold onto the truth while we find it. She attached a short paragraph. I copied it into an email and filled the blanks: campaign URL, organizer's name, the dates and times I had listed on my pad. I wrote plainly, as the old men in my family taught me to write checks. Legible, specific, with no flourishes that would make a banker squint. Before I hit send, I did what grandmothers do. I prayed. Not the kind of prayer that leans on outcomes, but the kind that asks for light, on the page, in the room, in whatever place makes a young woman think borrowed sorrow is better than her own. The house had that thin hour quiet, 3 o'clock, when even the furnace thinks better of creaking. I made one last loop through the evidence. The metadata that said saved image, the PDF created by a Pretty Things app, the hospital's polite no record, the tidy room that looked like grief staged for magazine. I did not add adjectives. I did not add anger. I added only dates. Then I opened a fresh email to the platform's trust and safety address. I attached the screen recording, the PDFs, the stills, the timeline, and a brief summary that would make sense to someone who did not know our names. In the subject line, I typed, "Request for review, possible misrepresentation in medical fundraiser." I read it once more, the way you check the stove before leaving the house. I thought of my grandson's laugh and my daughter-in-law's soft word with sharp teeth, reasons, and my husband's old advice: when you can't fix it with kindness, fix it with clarity. I clicked send. We submitted the evidence packet to the platform. People think truth is a thunderclap. Most days it's a thread. You tug and you see what moves. The night before, I had sent $50, small on purpose, like a fisherman letting a minnow swim to learn where the river runs. The receipt sat in my inbox with an ID number that looked official enough to salute. I wrote it on my yellow pad and drew a box around it. Proof doesn't need to be loud, it needs to be findable. I set up the little alarms I know how to make. Email rules to flag anything the campaign posted. A note to myself every hour to screen record the page as it changed. A second note to capture any stories she shared elsewhere. The vanishing kind that feel private until the whole town has watched them. At 2:18 a.m., the fundraiser total blinked up by 50 and a handful of small gifts. 5, 10, $2 with a heart. I recorded the page top to bottom so the URL and the climb of numbers lived in the same picture. At 2:24, an update appeared from the organizer. We're almost there. God is good, moving mountains tonight. There were 2 hands in prayer and a red heart. I saved that too. 8 minutes later, my phone reminded me to check other windows. Her story had multiplied, 3 new posts in neat white frames. The first was a selfie, the kind you take to chase sleep from your face. Pre-op nerves, the caption read with a trembling emoji. The second was a photo of a paper cup with a green logo. Hospital coffee is not it, she wrote, which made me smile despite myself because hospital coffee never is. The third was a photograph of a hand, her hand, resting under a small blue dryer with the caption, "Self-care at 2:30 because I deserve one nice thing." The geotag in the corner named a nail salon across town. I do not believe hospitals have started offering gel manicures at 2:30 in the morning. I screen recorded the story and let the video capture the timestamp and the location tag the way a net catches minnows you didn't know were there. I did not add commentary. The record keeps its own counsel. At 3:06, the campaign total jumped again. A donor with a name I didn't recognize gave $500 and left a note that read, "For your sweet boy. Prayers." I thought of that stranger handing over hope to a story that had better be true. I texted my attorney, who, bless her, is a lark and a night owl in equal measure, logging everything I wrote. Campaign updates her stories. One is from a nail salon at 2:30 a.m. After she posted pre-op. Her response came fast. Don't confront, collect. Take screenshots with the clock visible on your device. Save the story with the geotag, and keep your tone neutral in anything you write. Assume every sentence will someday be read aloud to a stranger in a suit. I made myself tea, the way you do when the night gets long and you have to be kind to your hands. The house felt like a library, every object quiet in the presence of a truth it hopes you will handle gently. At 4:11, an email arrived from the platform with the soft stamp of automation. Thanks for contacting Trust and Safety. We've opened a review. Please do not make public accusations while we assess this report. It asked for anything else I could provide. Context, which is a generous word for what families call history. I wrote back with what I had. The hospital calls, no account, no admission, the timestamps, the geotag, the Pretty Things app that birthed the invoice, the phrase moving mountains tonight posted minutes before a manicure. I did not speculate. I did not explain how my stomach had learned a new knot. I sent only the parts of the story that did not need me to feel in order to be true. Dawn took its time with the curtains. One good thing about thin light is it makes you honest. I thought about the first time my daughter-in-law hugged me, the eucalyptus and hairspray of that hallway, her we're a family always. I thought about the way always keeps its promise until words start doing the heavy lifting money used to do. At 6:03, my phone buzzed with a new update on the fundraiser. Withdrawals initiated to secure deposit for procedure. The sentence was vague enough to be harmless and specific enough to make anyone else breathe easier. I saved it, dated it, filed it beside the video of a blue nail dryer humming its little gospel. At 7:12, her name popped up on my screen with the cheery ring my grandson chose, the one that sounds like a cartoon morning. I watched the call dance across the glass. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. The second call came at 7:15. Then a text, can you talk? We're so close. If you can send the 10 by 9, we'll hit the home page. The algorithm is our friend if we move. I looked at the notes I'd made in the night, at the boxes I'd drawn around dates and numbers. I looked at the word my attorney had texted, collect, and thought of the way some words mean opposite things when you flip them over. Collect can mean gather. It can also mean yourself. I typed back. I can talk at 8. I'll call you. Then I went to the kitchen and made the kind of breakfast that doesn't ask your stomach to be brave: toast, an egg, a peach cut into church glass slices. The stove clock blinked its way toward 8 with the reliable clumsiness of old clocks. I moved my yellow pad beside the phone. I set my recording app to on, because in my state a person may record a call if she is part of it, and because memory does strange things when love and proof share a table. When the minute turned, I pressed the green button and lifted the phone the way you lift a curtain. Before we talk, I said, as gently as I could, I want you to know I'm recording this call. I want you to know I'm recording this call, I said, so I don't miss anything important. There was a small beat on her end, the kind you hear when a person decides which version of themselves to be. That's fine, she said, lighter than the moment. This is taking time away from the campaign, though. We're inches from the goal. Did you send the 10? I haven't, I said. I will help. First, I need a few simple things, things any grandmother could ask. The hospital's name, the unit, a number on a door. I'd like to pay the deposit directly to billing. Mom, she said, softening the word until it almost purred, we've been over this. HIPAA, they don't let families share details. HIPAA stops hospitals from sharing with me, I said. It doesn't stop you from telling me where you are. You're making this harder than it has to be. Her voice took on that tremble people used to warn you there will be tears if you keep walking. Do you think I would lie about your grandson? I think fear makes good people say desperate things, I said. And I think money makes fear louder. That's why I'm offering to pay the hospital, not an app. The algorithm is time sensitive, she said, as if I had misheard a science class. Funds have to flow through the page so the bump happens. That's how he gets treated faster. Sweetheart, I said, hospitals don't bump children to the front of the line because a website is excited. They bump them because a doctor is. There was the rustle of a sleeve, the scrape of a chair. You're judging me, she said. You always do. You think I'm careless. You think I like nice things more than I love my family. I think you're scared, I said. I think you want the soft life you were promised, and the hard truth you were handed won't stop ringing. Both can be true. She exhaled into the phone, a sound like someone letting the air out of a party balloon. We don't have time for this. They're holding our spot. If you love him, send the money. I love him, I said, which is why I called the hospital last night. Silence, the kind that looks around for a chair. I didn't ask for any records, I went on. I asked about a bill format. I asked if an account number matched their system. They said it didn't. When I searched the photo details, they told me it was saved, not taken in the moment. The invoice was created by a design app. These are small things, but small things add up. You called the hospital. The softness in her voice evaporated, leaving the metal underneath. You went behind my back. How could you undermine us like that? Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to be second-guessed when your child is? I'm not second-guessing your child, I said. I'm first guessing the money. That's my job when I'm the one asked to move a comma on a mortgage-sized number at midnight. You're paranoid, she said. You don't understand how modern fundraising works. People share images from other families for privacy all the time. It's normal. If it's not his room, I said gently, say that. If the bill is a template, say that too. Tell the truth plainly and we'll walk the rest of the way together. You're twisting this, she said. You always twist things. You make me out to be the villain so you can be the hero. Do you know how that feels? I know how it feels to be asked for $10,000 at 1 in the morning with a deadline measured in algorithms, I said. I'm offering a safe path. Name the hospital. I'll bring a cashier's check to patient accounts, or we set up an escrow through my attorney. Funds released only to verified charges. Either way, he is covered. Either way, help arrives. She let out a small, disbelieving laugh. You want control, that's all this is. You're mad because you can't be the center anymore. This is why we don't tell you things, because you turn everything into a test. Everything that costs this much is a test, I said. It tests our love and our judgment at the same time. You don't trust me, she said, and there it was, the sentence that tries to turn your caution into a confession. I trust facts, I said. I trust receipts, names on doors, the sound of a monitor in a real room. Trust is not less because it asks for a handle to hold. She sniffed, and the sound was not pretty. I don't have time to educate you. People are watching the total. We go to the homepage if we hit the goal by 9. This is how things work now. If you can't get behind us, at least don't get in front of us. I won't stand in your way, I said. I will stand where the truth is. Send me the hospital's name. Or text me permission to call billing to place a deposit on your behalf. That's my line. And if I don't, she said, each word its own small challenge. Then I won't send money through the page, I said. I won't speak against you. I will simply keep what I have until there is a place to put it that doesn't leak. She was quiet so long I thought the call had dropped. When she came back, her voice was cooled to a different metal. You know what? Maybe you should sit this one out. Maybe the wedding is too much for you with all your conditions. The wedding is next month, I said. Conditions are what make vows worth anything. Oh, spare me the hallmark, she snapped. Here's a condition for you, if you make this big. If you start calling people or platforms or whoever you think listens to you, then don't bother showing up for the biggest day of our lives. There it was, the line people draw when they run out of map. I stared at the yellow pad on my table, at the neat boxes around times and truths. My husband used to say some threats are really invitations. Please discover who you are now. Her breath crackled in my ear. Do we understand each other? I looked at the phone, at the little red dot that said the machine would remember this even if I forgot. We understand each other, I said. More than you think. Good, she said, and the word slammed the way a car door does when someone is done being careful. Because if you make this big, the wedding is over. After we hung up, the house held its breath. Threats do that to a room. They strip the paint of small talk and leave the studs. If you make this big, the wedding is over, she'd said. There are moments when a sentence is not a door slamming but a window opening. I stood very still and let the draft find me. In the hall closet sits a banker's box with a split corner and a label in my husband's small, tidy hand, wedding contracts. I carried it to the table like a loaf that needed careful slicing. Inside were manila folders with paper clips like little shoulders, venue, caterer, band, florist, photographer. Every signature line wore my name. Every deposit had cleared on my card with my widow's courage. I called my attorney. She answered on the second ring, already walking me through the calm. "Don't accuse," she said again. "Act." We spread the paperwork between us, me at my table, her at a desk that has seen other families chew on the same bone. She read aloud the lines that mattered, the way a doctor reads a chart when the diagnosis is kindness with conditions. "Here," she said, tapping words I could hear. "Client may cancel at any time with written notice. Deposit is non-refundable. Final payment not due until 72 hours prior. And this? Venue reserves the right to terminate for illegal or unethical activity that may risk reputation." That clause runs both ways in practice. If your name and money are attached to something you no longer endorse, you can withdraw support. You'll eat deposits, but you keep your integrity. "I can pay the price of a clean line," I said. "I've paid more for a crooked one." "Then do it clean," she said. "Short, factual notices. No motives, no character sketches. As the signatory, I am canceling and accept the fee. Send the same to each vendor. Request written confirmation. That's all." I opened the venue folder. Maple Row Pavilion, a white hall with beams like ribs and a floor that wanted dancing. The general manager's name sat in block letters beside a number that still had yesterday in it. I dialed. Coffee and Morning Birds shared the line with a woman whose voice had practiced hello 1,000 times. "Maple Row, this is Diane." "Good morning, Diane. This is Dorothy Martin. I'm the signatory on the Martin Hale wedding for next month." I read her the contract number, the date, the last four of my card. She clicked keys, the small polite rain of a person finding you. "Yes, MS Martin. How can I help?" "I'm calling to cancel," I said. "Effective immediately. Please treat this as the written notice required by Section 8B. I understand the deposit is non-refundable. I'm not asking for it. I am asking for confirmation by email that our contract is terminated and that my card will not be charged any additional amounts." There was the soft pause professionals use when they decide whether to step around a truth or meet it at the curb. "May I ask if the couple is aware?" "They will be," I said. "I'm the client of record. I'm withdrawing my support and removing my name from the event. That's all I'm prepared to say." Another small rain of keys. "I can process the cancellation," she said. "You'll receive an email within the hour. For the record, we appreciate decisive clients. It's kinder to our staff to know where we stand. Kindness, I've learned, sometimes looks like a hard line drawn early." "Thank you, Diane," I said. "Please also note in the file that any communications about rescheduling or rebooking should be directed to the new payer, should they provide one. I will not authorize further charges." "Understood," she said. "I'll notate the account." I hung up and moved through the stack. The caterer first, sugar and thyme. The band, three brothers with a horn section bold enough to make a vow stand up straighter. The florist, a woman who speaks peony like a second language. The photographer, young, hungry, tender with light. I made the same call 4 times and then copied the same letter 4 times, changing only the contract number and the email address. As the signatory, I am canceling. I accept the penalty. Do not process further charges. Please confirm in writing. No explanations, no performance, just the click of a latch finding the strike plate. In between calls, I emailed my attorney the drafts. She cleaned the edges. "Please acknowledge receipt. Please treat this as formal notice under section. Please confirm that all third-party vendors engaged through you will be released." She knows how to walk words through a storm without them getting wet. The replies began to land like small, relieved birds. Received. Contract terminated. Deposit retained. No additional charges will be made. We wish the couple well. I made tea I didn't drink. I watched the inbox gather confirmations the way a yard gathers leaves. A build you don't notice until there's a pile to move. My phone lit with her name. I let it go to voicemail. I am learning to let things go where they belong. The message, when it came, was heat without aim. How dare you? Maple Road just called me. You're ruining everything. I saved it, dated it, filed it with the rest. The last contract on the table was the band's. A handwritten note from the saxophonist fell out when I opened the folder. Thanks for booking us. We'll make it a night to remember. He signed with a smiley face that felt like a nephew's. I closed my eyes a moment for all the small, good folks whose work gets bent when families break their own rules. I sent the final notice and set my pen down. The house exhaled. A boundary is a mercy you give yourself and everyone who has to live with you afterward. At 9:02, my inbox chimed again, subject line, cancellation confirmation, Maple Row Pavilion. I clicked it and read the first sentence twice. The way you reread the moment a story changes its shoes. Per your request as signatory, we have canceled the event under contract 4417. No further charges will be made. Please find attached a statement reflecting the forfeited deposit and zero balance due. I forwarded the confirmation to my attorney with 2 words, all done. Her reply arrived a minute later. You acted within your rights. Keep everything. Say nothing public. Let the paper speak. The stove clock shouldered its way toward 10. Sun found the rim of my coffee and made it look kinder than it tasted. In the quiet, I opened the platform's email thread and typed one more sentence, attaching the confirmations like small, obedient soldiers. For your review, I am the signatory and financial sponsor of the associated wedding contracts. I have withdrawn support and canceled my obligations due to concerns about misrepresentation tied to the fundraiser. Please note this context as you assess withdrawals. I reread it, trimmed 3 words, and pressed send. The house was still. In that stillness, my husband's voice visited, a memory with a coat on. You can love people and still close the valve when the pipe leaks, Dory. That's not cruelty, that's plumbing. When the phone rang again, I let it ring. Not because I was hiding, because I had finally remembered where the shutoff lived. On the screen, a new notification floated up from the platform, a line so simple it made my hands shake. We have paused withdrawals pending review. The email arrived the way dawn does, quiet and sure of itself. Subject, action taken on reported campaign. Body, we have paused withdrawals pending review. Please refrain from public accusations while we complete our assessment. We may contact donors if additional information is required. Paper speaks, my attorney likes to say. But sometimes the internet does too. Within an hour, a banner appeared at the top of the fundraiser like a strip of police tape. This campaign is under review. The total froze mid-climb, a number caught between hope and arithmetic. I recorded the page from top to bottom. Title, organizer, the photo of my grandson in the too tidy room, the gray ribbon of the warning. I saved the recording twice and wrote the time in the margin of my yellow pad. I'm not superstitious, but I have learned to be thorough. Trust and safety wrote again mid-morning. They were polite in the way pilots are polite when the plane hits weather. They explained without apologizing. We are contacting the organizer for supporting documentation, admission record, physician's letter, itemized billing. We have also notified contributors that the campaign is paused. Donors may request a refund immediately. If misrepresentation is confirmed, refunds will be initiated automatically. It was the kind of paragraph that moves money like a tide. My phone began to ping with a different kind of sound. Emails forwarded by friends who'd given 20 or 10 or 5, each with the same opening. We're writing about a campaign you supported. Some replies were simple. Thanks for letting me know. Some were tender. I've been there. I hope the child is okay, whatever the truth is. A nurse wrote, hospitals are messier than that photo. A man I'd never met said, if this is a misunderstanding, I'll give again, just say the word. I didn't gloat. That's the temptation when the wind shifts your way. But the best you can do in a moment like that is hold the rope steady and try not to enjoy the tug. By noon, the platform asked for one more thing. If you have any direct communications indicating reluctance to provide hospital information, please forward them for context. I sent screenshots of the late-night texts with the algorithm and the special unit, and please don't make me explain everything. I sent the call log and the voicemail time stamps, but not the voicemail itself. The law can have my paper. My heart will keep its own memories. I kept my promise not to post. No names, no status updates. When people asked me in church group threads and grocery aisles if the rumors were true, I said, the platform is reviewing. I'm letting their process be the process. Boundaries are not just for money, they are for words. At 2:03 p.m., a new status chimed, temporary hold converted to suspension. The banner changed color. The update field disappeared. The comment box went blank, like a stage when the curtain drops and the audience realizes the actors are not coming back. A donor forwarded me the notice in full. We have suspended this campaign for violating our terms regarding misleading content. We are initiating refunds to all contributors. Please allow 3-5 business days for processing. The number of donors read like a census. You can learn a lot about a town by who shows up with $5. I set the email beside my legal pad and let my hands stop shaking. Somewhere in the distance, a lawn mower fussed against summer. Ordinary life is the kindest music when truth has been loud. Then the other weather arrived. First came a text from my son, no punctuation, all velocity. What are you doing? They froze the account, call me now. Then another, Mom, please answer. Then one more, she says you called everyone and ruined our wedding. You can tell a lot about a man by which pronouns he chooses when the ground moves. She says, not we know. I didn't answer yet. I have discovered that urgency is not the same thing as importance. I forwarded the suspension notice to my attorney with 2 words, it's done. She replied, keep your phone on. Storms travel in pairs. At 3:17 p.m., the platform posted a final line beneath the banner, small enough to miss if you were reading with your heart, refunds initiated. I pictured all those tiny tributaries reversing course, nickels and 20s and kindnesses making their way back to the pockets that had emptied them. In a better world, love would not need a receipt. In this one, it does. The calls began then, a metronome of consequences. The venue, we've processed your cancellation. Wish the couple well. The florist, we donated your deposit blooms to the NICU. I sat with that one a while, a private mercy in a day that had asked too much of public ones. At 4:02, a number I didn't recognize lit the screen. I let it roll to voicemail. The transcript bloomed a second later, angry punctuation marching in formation. You just destroyed our family. You humiliated US in front of everyone. How dare you pretend this is about truth when you're just jealous? You owe US for what you've done. I saved it, dated it, filed it. Then I stood at the sink and washed a peach the way you wash a wound, carefully with both hands. Another email from Trust and Safety slid in at 4:19. Thank you for your cooperation. Our reviewers determined the organizer failed to provide documentation of medical need, provided images inconsistent with the claimed facility, and used a non-hospital generated billing document. Under our policy, we have removed the campaign and initiated refunds to all contributors. We have preserved logs per your request and are available to cooperate with any law enforcement inquiry. It was, in tone and form, a door that closed itself. I forwarded that to my attorney. She said one sentence that sounded like a benediction. You did what guardians do. I believed her. I also felt the grief a person feels when the story they wanted turns out to be a shadow on a wall. The house was quiet enough to hear the refrigerator consider its next hum. I made tea. I sat down. I let my body remember it belonged to me. Then the phone rang with a name I did recognize. I watched it light and fade, until the 4th call landed and the voicemail icon began to pulse. I pressed play. Her voice was raw, all edges. You, she said, each letter sharpened, just blew up our life. Maple Row canceled. The band canceled. The florist is telling people things. The page is gone. Do you know how many donors are texting me? 3,000. 3,000. You think anyone will believe me now? You think we can walk into a church after this? You wanted to disappear from our wedding? Congratulations. You disappeared our wedding. I steadied my hands on the table. The stove clock stumbled to 4:37. The phone began to vibrate again, this time with a live call, her name burning bright. I didn't pick up. I let it roll to voicemail, and when it ended, another began, short, furious, almost a hiss. You didn't just ruin a fundraiser, she said. You ruined a family. Public things have their own gravity. Once a truth steps outside, even politely, it starts drawing furniture across the floor. By noon, the platform's banner had done its quiet work. Donors wrote to say they'd received notices. A retired teacher sent me 3 words: I understand, dear. And I cried at my sink for a woman I'd never met. A nurse commented that real hospital rooms collect mess like a magnet. A mechanic added that invoices don't come with hair gel. People have a way of telling the truth sideways when they're trying not to pick a fight. I kept my promise not to post. When friends asked in grocery lines and church threads, I said one sentence I could live with. The platform is reviewing, I'm letting their process be the process. Boundaries aren't only for money, they're for words. Still, the town did what towns do. The fundraiser's pause made a small wake in the places where news travels on foot, next door. The PTA chat, a Facebook group that could turn a lost cat into a neighborhood opera. The theories were industrious. Some folks prayed in public. Some folks sharpened their knives. Most just watched, which is its own kind of weather. Mid-afternoon, a reporter called from the local paper, voice careful as a person stepping into a church for the first time. We're covering concerns about online fundraisers, she said. Would you like to comment? I would like to be kind, I said, and I would like to be useful. My attorney and I had prepared a single sentence for such a moment, as simple as a bandage. I notified the platform of discrepancies. They reviewed and acted. I'm grateful donors are protected. I won't be discussing family matters. She asked for name to quote. I gave her mine. It's a good habit to put your own name on your own sentences. An hour later, the article appeared, small, sober, tucked between a school board recap and a photo of the summer parade. The platform offered its standard line about misrepresentation being prohibited and refunds issued. No names, no fire, just process. I clipped it for the folder because paper still counts in my house. The other story, my daughter-in-law's, arrived on schedule in the places where heat outruns light. A post with a soft selfie and a hard caption, betrayed by the person who was supposed to protect us. Hundreds of hearts. Dozens of comments that said what comments say when they're drafting a character out of air. Some offered to restart the fundraiser on a different site. Others promised lawyers who eat people like that for lunch. A few asked for details, hospital, diagnosis, and were told that privacy is love spelled correctly. I saved screenshots the way you save baby teeth. Families have odd museums. By late afternoon, the platform's final notice, suspended, had hardened the air. Refunds were already reversing down their little rivers. The venue wrote to say our deposit went to the NICU flower cart. I sat with that a while, brighter mercy than I deserved. Then the storm turned personal. My son called in sentences that ran all the lights. What did you do, Mom? They're all refunding. She can't show her face. He did not ask me what I knew. He asked me why the ground had moved. There is a difference. I'm here, I said. When you're ready for a chair and a pen, I have both. At 3:40, my email coughed up a tone I did not recognize. The subject line wore a suit, demand for retraction and notice of potential claims. The sender was a firm with a name that sounded like a bronze plaque. I opened it and read the way you read a weather report that mentions your street by name. The letter alleged defamation, tortious interference with contracts, intentional infliction of emotional distress. It accused me of publicly disseminating false statements and contacting vendors to sabotage a wedding, of maliciously reporting a legitimate campaign. It demanded within 24 hours that I 1. Retract all statements, 2. Reinstate all wedding contracts, 3. Publicly apologize, and 4. Remit compensation for damages, a number so large it felt like a dare. At the bottom, a signature sloped across the page, expensive ink doing expensive things. I printed the letter and laid it on the table with the yellow pad, the platform emails, the vendor confirmations, the dates and times lined up like little fence posts. Paper speaks, my attorney says. It also listens. I called her. I've received a letter, I said, and read it aloud, syllable by syllable, the way you read a spell to make sure it doesn't change while you're looking at it. Breathe, she said when I finished. A letter is not a lawsuit. It is a costume a lawsuit sometimes wears to frighten the guests. What do we do? I asked. We answer. She said, brief, factual on letterhead. We attach the platform's findings, the hospital's non-matches, the vendor contracts with your name where your name belongs. We do not return fire. We return documents. And the deadline? I asked, looking at the bolded 5:00 p.m. tomorrow that tried to turn my kitchen into a countdown. We'll meet it, she said. Clarity beats speed, but today it gets to do both. I set the letter on top of the stack and looked at the clock that has never once kept perfect time and never will. The house listened with me. Some threats are just weather, some are warnings, and some are invitations to decide what kind of roof you live under. I slid the letter into the folder marked Miracle Evidence, capped my pen, and stood very still. The deadline was already walking toward us. The lawyer's letter sat on my table like a storm in a suit. I stacked my papers the way a person stacks sandbags, calmly, in order knowing water is patient. On the left, the platform's suspension notice, the donor a fund email, the printout of terms where misrepresentation lives in bold. In the middle, the vendor confirmations with my name where my name belongs, contracts closed like good books. On the right, my yellow pad timeline, the hospital's no record notes, the small receipt for $50, proof that I had touched the water before measuring the river. My attorney drafted our reply on letterhead that looked like a steady hand. Truth is a defense to defamation, the first paragraph said without raising its voice. Client acted within her contractual rights, the second added, laying down the venue clause like a clean napkin. We attached exhibits, numbered and polite. No adjectives. Paper prefers nouns. I made tea and watched the kettle argue with the dark. At 2:57, the phone began to jitter across the table. My son's name lit by the ringtone our grandson picked. A cartoon morning trying to happen in the middle of the night? I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, then a text, please pick up, she's not okay. None of this is okay, I answered on the third try. Before we talk, I said, I'm recording this call. In my state, one person's consent is enough. I gave it aloud so the truth would remember. He exhaled a sentence. They suspended everything. People are calling us liars. Maple Row canceled. The florist posted about Niku flowers, Mom. Do you know how that looks? Like kindness found a way to bloom, I said. Sit down, Michael. Put me on speaker if she's there. There was a rustle, a scrape, the familiar choreography of two people rearranging themselves to be one voice. I don't know who you think you are, she said, hoarse, furious. You called a platform and a newspaper and ruined our wedding and our reputation. You can't do that to family. I reported discrepancies to the place that held the money, I said. They looked, they decided. Vendors were under my contracts, I ended them. Those are sentences I can defend in a room with chairs. You're obsessed with chairs and rooms, she snapped. Real life is happening to us right now. Then let's bring real life into a room, I said. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, my attorney's office. Bring the admission record, an itemized bill, a letter from a physician. If the story is what you say, paper will say so too. If it isn't, we will talk about amends. Amends? She said, tasting the word like a bruise. You want an apology tour? You want me to crawl back to 3,000 strangers? I want the truth to be the same size in public as it is in private, I said, and I want my grandson's name out of any story that doesn't belong to him. Silence, then my son, smaller. Mom, can't we just fix this without lawyers? Restore the page somewhere else? People would give again if... No, I said. We will not outrun the truth to a second platform. We will walk it through the door with our names on our coats. If you want help, it lives there. You canceled our wedding, she said, voice cracking on the last word. I canceled my contracts, I said. A wedding is a vow, not a venue. Vows keep without sparklers. She laughed a sound that had no humor in it. You always have a line. I have a line because I need one, I said. It's the only way love doesn't drown. Another silence. I could hear a clock in their kitchen trying to tell the time around their breathing. 2 o'clock, my son said at last. We'll be there. Bring everything, I said. If there's proof, it will hold in the light. If there isn't, we will talk about what accountability looks like, a public correction, cooperation with refunds, a budget that doesn't rely on strangers' mercy. counseling if you need help telling the truth to yourselves before you tell it to anyone else. You don't get to dictate our lives, she said. I get to dictate my money, I said gently. And my name, tomorrow, is for the rest. She hung up without goodbye. The line returned to its little ocean sound, the hum of a world still running somewhere. I set the phone down and slid our lawyer's draft into a binder. I made tabs with a label maker my husband hated and I kept anyway. Platform, hospital, vendors, timeline, calls. I put the binder by the door with my keys and a peppermint because some habits are older than caution. At 3:30, the house creaked the way old houses confess the night back to itself. I washed my cup. I turned off the lamp. I stood a long moment in the doorway of my own room, as if watching over a child. We like to think truth marches in daylight. Most of the time, it makes its plans at 3 a.m., sitting at a kitchen table with a stack of paper and a tired heart that's finally decided to be brave. Tomorrow, we'd see what story they brought to tell under fluorescent honesty. I set the alarm, and I slept. My attorney's conference room was the kind of place that asks people to behave. Dark wood, glass of water at every seat, a quiet clock that didn't try to be the center of anything. She set a single rule before anyone sat down. One at a time, she said. Documents on the table. Feelings can be here, but facts go first. Michael arrived looking like a man who'd slept under an argument. She followed 2 steps behind, beautiful and brittle in a way glass understands. A moment later, the door opened again and a woman with winter gray hair slipped in, smoothing the air like a nurse straightening a sheet. Barbara, she said, offering her hand to my attorney, then to me. Her mother. She turned to her daughter. I asked to come. Families do better with witnesses. My daughter-in-law didn't argue. Some days the wind is out of you before you know it. We took our places. My attorney clicked a pen. The gentlest gavel. Thank you for coming, she began. We're here to review 3 things: the fundraiser, the wedding contracts, and any next steps that repair what can be repaired. I'll start simple. Admission record, itemized bill, physician's letter. My daughter-in-law reached into her tote and produced a printout. The paper had the shine of something made pretty on purpose. She pushed it forward with a hand that trembled just enough to count. This, she said, is what I have. My attorney studied it like a teacher reading an essay that had all the right vocabulary and none of the homework. This is not a hospital bill, she said softly. It's a design template with hospital words on it, no account string, no CPT codes, no provider ID, no remittance address that belongs to the facility. It's what they sent us, she shot back. Digitally, you don't understand how modern hospitals work. I do, my attorney said. I also understand what they don't send. Michael cleared his throat, a small sound that wanted to be a bridge. Couldn't we just agree that sometimes paperwork lags? We were in crisis. Barbara placed 2 fingers on the page and turned it back toward her daughter. If this isn't a bill, she said, say it isn't a bill. It's what we had, her daughter repeated, but quieter now, as if trying on someone else's shoes. My attorney slid a printout of her own across the wood, an email with a corporate logo none of us loved but all of us recognized. From the platform, she said. Withdrawals paused, then suspended. Refunds initiated. They requested documentation from the organizer and received none that verified medical need. My daughter-in-law looked at me then with a heat I have felt from stoves and from people. You did this. I reported discrepancies, I said. They did their job. The vendors were under my contracts. I ended obligations with my name on them. That's what I did. Barbara reached into her bag. And I brought this, she said, laying a small spiral notebook on the table like an offering. A budget you and I made in January, remember? We put stars by no new debt and no crowdfunding unless we could show receipts. You wrote those stars, sweetheart, and you asked me to hold you to them. My daughter-in-law's eyes flashed. So now everyone gangs up. Great. No, Barbara said, and her voice did what good voices do when rooms get sharp. It softened without surrendering. Now we tell the truth in front of chairs. That's all a family can do with a mess. Stop spreading it and start cleaning it. My attorney turned a page on her legal pad. Second topic, she said. The wedding. Here are the cancellations and acknowledgments. MS Martin, she nodded toward me, was the signatory. She accepted penalties. Vendors are released. If you wish to book new contracts, you are free to do so under your own names. You mean if we can find anyone who will have us, my daughter-in-law said. Everyone knows Maple Row, the florist. The florist donated the deposit blooms to the NICU, I said, because some facts deserve air. It was a kindness. Humiliation, she snapped, paraded down the hallway with our flowers. Barbara placed her palm flat on the table. Or grace, she said. When we stumble, something beautiful might still get to its destination. No one spoke for a full breath. The clock made its small, patient sound. My attorney folded her hands. Here is where we are. A fundraiser is down for misrepresentation. Vendors are canceled within contract. Donors are being made whole. That is the public ledger. The private one is why you're here. If there is proof we haven't seen, now is when it meets daylight. If there isn't, we discuss repair. My daughter-in-law looked at Michael. Marriage is often the art of asking your eyes to speak first. He stared at the table grain as if trying to memorize a safer road. There's no admission record, he said finally, so quiet I almost missed it. We borrowed a story to get ahead. We thought we'd square it when the real bill came from something else. We told ourselves it was all one pot. Barbara closed her eyes, the kind of close that isn't sleep, but a door on a room where you're not ready to go yet. My daughter-in-law's jaw set. We needed to survive, she said. The world raises money for dogs and influencers and nonsense every day. We asked for help for a family, our family. You asked strangers for a miracle, my attorney said. That isn't a crime by itself. The way you did it may be. And even where it isn't, it's still wrong. Wrong has a way of sending a bill under names you didn't expect. My daughter-in-law's eyes shone. So what now? You take your victory lap? You cancel the last thing we have left? Victory laps are for races, I said. This is a walk back to the starting line. Barbara turned to her daughter with a tenderness that made me ache. There is a way through that doesn't pretend. It will cost pride and comfort, and maybe the big wedding, but it will buy you a life you can sleep in. My attorney looked at me. It was my turn. The room felt like a lung. I have two paths, I said, sliding a clean sheet of paper into the middle of the table, leaving it blank the way a road looks before you draw the lines. I'm going to put them here, and I did not speak them yet. I slid a clean sheet of paper into the center of the table and let the room hear the sound of it. These are the paths, I said. They aren't punishments, they're doors. You choose which one opens. My attorney folded her hands. Barbara rested her fingertips on the edge of the wood, a mother steadying a crib. Michael stared at the blank page as if a safer life might be written there if he squinted. Path 1, I said, and drew a line down the middle. Repair. I wrote as I spoke, so the words could behave. First, I said, a public correction, not a spectacle, an accurate post where the fundraiser lived. You'll state that the medical images and invoice did not come from our family, that the platform asked for documents you could not provide, that refunds are in process. You'll ask donors to let their refunds complete and thank them for their kindness. My daughter-in-law's jaw tightened. I kept writing. Second, restitution for anything off-platform, cash, checks, gifts handed over a backyard fence. We'll open an escrow account at my attorney's office for 90 days. Money in, receipts tracked, money back out to the people who trusted you. Simple math with names. Third, I said, cooperation with anyone who needs the truth, platform reviewers, the bank that flagged my test donation, your own friends who gave because they love you. No new fundraisers for 12 months. No moving the story to a second site. Fourth, accountability that changes behavior, not just headlines. 6 months of financial counseling. A written family budget that spends less than it earns. If you need help, we'll find someone to stand in your kitchen and teach you how to make Tuesday out of Monday's leftovers. Humble skills save lives. Fifth, service. 40 volunteer hours at the hospital's Family Resource Center or the NICU flower cart that received our deposit blooms. Not to pay for anything, to learn the weight of other people's hard. I paused, the room listened with me. Sixth, vows scaled to fit the truth. If you still wish to marry, do it without spectacle. A courthouse ceremony or a backyard with sandwiches and a playlist. If you keep the day small enough for your word to carry it, it will hold. And in return, Michael asked, voice thin but there. In return, I said, I won't take this further. No calls to a prosecutor, no civil claims. I'll sign a simple mutual non-disparagement. No public mud from me, none from you. I won't fund a wedding, but I will bring a pan of baked ziti and 2 clean hands. You will have a mother, not a sponsor. I drew the second column. Path 2, I said. Severance. The word made a quiet place in the air. No public correction, no escrow. Life as you've been living it on your terms, and on mine I will not fund you. I will not co-sign, backstop, or underwrite. I will forward documents to whomever asks, platform, bank, law enforcement, and then I will step back. 90 days of no contact to let everyone's breathing find its own rhythm. After that, doors may open or not, depending on what the truth has built. My attorney slid the paper so they could see. 2 simple columns, 6 items and 1 mercy on the left, 1 sentence and a boundary on the right. This is control, my daughter-in-law said, almost a hiss. You've dressed it as concern, but it's a leash. This is a railing on a staircase, I said. No one is forcing you to climb. I'm offering you something to hold. She flicked her eyes at Barbara. And do you approve of this, Mother? Do you like watching her humiliate me with volunteer hours and baked ziti? Barbara smoothed the paper with a palm that had steadied fevered foreheads and report cards with B-minuses. I like watching a woman tell the truth and then live with it, she said. I have not always required that of you. That ends today. Michael swallowed. If we do the post, he asked, will you stand with us? Not online, at church with people, so it doesn't look like we're alone. I will sit 2 pews back and sing the hymn, I said. That's what I can do. My daughter-in-law leaned forward until the table held the rest of her up. You want me to apologize to 3,000 strangers, she said. Look them in the eye and say I lied. I want you to face the people you asked for a miracle, I said, and give them back their names. She laughed then, a bright, brittle sound that had nothing to do with joy. I won't do it, she said. I won't stand on a digital street corner and beg forgiveness for a technicality. Everyone fundraises like this. Everyone borrows images. Everyone rounds up their hardship. You just hate me enough to make it a crime. Rounding up hardship makes it someone else's, my attorney said, not unkindly. And everyone is the slipperiest liar in the family. My daughter-in-law's eyes went slick. You want me on my knees, she said. You want me small. I want you honest, I said. Honesty will do some of the shrinking for you, only for a while. She pushed back her chair, wood scolding floor. No, I won't. I won't apologize on the page. I won't clock hours at some hospital cart so old ladies can feel good about chrysanthemums. I won't get up in front of church and let them stare at me like a thing they've pinned to a board. Barbara's voice was the one mothers keep for when the room is at risk. Sweetheart, she said, pride is a hunger that will eat you before it feeds you. My daughter-in-law shook her head hard enough to make a strand of hair break free. I will not apologize in public, she said, each word separate as if the sentence didn't trust its own legs. The clock on the credenza found the next minute. My attorney capped her pen. Then choose path 2, she said gently, and understand what it costs. Path 2 has a simple map. You keep your pride, you lose your handrails. They chose it, or rather she did, with a sentence that tried to be taller than the room. I will not apologize in public. The word stood there a moment, then started charging interest. By evening, our RSVP bubbles began to deflate. Friends who had posted engagement hearts a month ago sent cool, careful notes. We're going to step back until things settle. The church coordinator wrote a line that had practiced kindness. Given the circumstances, we'll need to free your date for another couple. Even the bakery, which had nothing to do with anything except sugar and hope, asked where to send the sketch of a cake that would now be a drawing forever. Online, the air hardened. Donors shared the platform's refund emails in the same threads where the fundraiser had first risen. People are tidy that way when they can be. A few asked for clarity and were met with the kind of privacy that is really a door being pushed shut. Someone suggested starting over on a different site with no haters allowed. Most just watched. Watching can be its own kind of verdict. Michael called that night and didn't use any of the old shortcuts. Mom, he said, his voice rubbing its eyes, I think we have to tell the truth. All the way, I can't stop hearing the word borrowed in my own mouth. Then say it somewhere with chairs, I told him. That's where truth learns its table manners. She won't, he said, not yet. He was quiet and I could hear the small work a heart does when it is lifting something heavier than itself. But I can, he added. If I do, it'll cost me more than money. Most good things do, I said. Barbara texted a photograph just after 9. A spiral notebook open to January. Two little starred lines, no new debt and no crowdfunding without receipts. Her caption read, I should have meant this harder. Mothers have their own private ledgers. At 10, my daughter-in-law posted a picture of her ring in a ray of kitchen light. The caption said nothing and everything, still us. The comments were split between stay strong and say something. I saved the post because families keep odd museums. Around midnight, the wedding party group chat, those bright young voices that had once argued passionately about linens, went silent for good. One bridesmaid, braver than the rest, wrote, I love you, and I can't stand up with a story that sits down on other people's money. Compassion can be a spine. The next morning, a letter from our lawyer, quiet and firm, slid into their inbox. Our reply to that bronze plaque firm. Exhibits attached. Truth arranged in paragraphs that didn't shout. No retraction will be issued, it concluded, because no defamatory statement was made. Paper is the only voice I know that can lower the temperature of a room by simply arriving. At noon, a small mercy found its way to me. The florist texted a photo. Tiny vases lined like a choir along a NICU window are would have been peonies making the machines look gentler. Thank you for letting something bloom anyway, she wrote. I stood at my sink and cried for a future that had found another job. By evening, Path 2 had collected more tolls. The venue sent a final schedule showing another couple penciled onto what had been their date. A cousin, soft-hearted, soft-spoken, called to say he'd stopped defending what he couldn't name. If there's a better story, he said, I want to hear it from the people who lived it. And then came the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a pause between the end of a song and the part where someone decides whether to play it again correctly. Near midnight, my phone lit with a text from my daughter-in-law. Are you awake? Yes, I typed. It's one of the few true things widows can always say. What would it look like, she wrote, if I told the truth and didn't disappear? Small, I answered, and steady. It looks like fixing one sentence at a time in the same place you broke them. It looks like saying the words out loud with your name attached and then living underneath them long enough that people stop checking whether they'll hold. There were 3 dots, then none, then 3 again, hesitation trying out its shoes. If I do it, she wrote finally, will you stand there? Not to speak, just to be a person who doesn't flinch. 2 pews back, I wrote, like I promised. The phone went still. The house breathed. Somewhere beyond my window, a train shouldered through town, drawing a low line under the day. In the morning, before the coffee had finished being brave, a notification hopped onto my screen from the same account that had once posted manicures at 2:30 a.m. and ring shots in buttery light. It was a live stream countdown, 30 seconds, 29, punctual, unhideable. I set the phone on the table. I did not sit. Some things you watch standing up. The counter reached 0. The screen filled with her face without its usual stage lights. Eyes red-rimmed, mouth set like a person choosing a door. She took one breath the way swimmers do when they have decided to cross something. I need to tell a truth, she said. The comments began to crawl, a school of bright fish. We're here, say it, praying the occasional hook with teeth. She looked down at her own hands, then up again like a swimmer checking the far shore. I used a photo that wasn't ours, she said. I used a template that looked like a hospital bill and wasn't. I told myself we were borrowing until we could repay with a real story. That was a lie dressed like a plan. The platform asked for proof and I couldn't give it. They did the right thing by suspending the campaign and refunding everyone. The chat slowed. You could feel a roomful of phones remembering how to listen. If you gave off-platform, cash, check, a gift card, we will make that right, she went on. There will be an escrow account at an attorney's office for 90 days. Send a note to the email on the screen. You'll get a receipt and then your money back. She paused, the kind of pause you take when you're letting the world rearrange itself around a sentence. Please don't be cruel to my family, she added. Please don't be cruel to his, and hear her voice dip toward the doorway where my son must have been standing. We let something hungry make our decisions. We're going to feed it something else now. Work, not shortcuts. I'm sorry. There were apologies that tried to carry too much freight and broke in the middle. This one didn't. It stayed small enough to live in. A moderator pinned a comment with the escrow details. Hearts floated up like minnows. There were angrier replies, too, the kind that mistake volume for justice. She didn't flinch at those. She let the water pass. And one more thing, she said. Please don't use our child's name in this. He was never sick. That's the point. I took a miracle that belonged to someone else's story and tried to make it ours. We're returning it. She ended the stream without a flourish. Just a nod, a click, a screen that learned how to be quiet. Within the hour, a written post went up, plain type on a plain background, the way you post a recipe you want people to follow. It said what the video had said, and then it said what needed saying in the language platforms and banks understand. Refunds are in process. Escrow will return all off-platform gifts. No new fundraising. Please direct any questions to the attorney's email. I took a screenshot. Then I did what I'd promised. I drove to my attorney's office with a tray of baked ziti and 2 clean hands. They were already there, my son in a shirt that wanted ironing, my daughter-in-law with a face that looked older in a good way. Barbara, her mother, occupied the kind of chair witnesses choose on purpose, close enough to help, far enough to let responsibility walk on its own legs. We signed what needed signing. My attorney explained the escrow like a recipe. Ingredients, steps, time in the oven. They chose a counseling service that teaches budgets slowly, like handwriting. We picked volunteer hours that felt like mending. She would help at the Family Resource Center on Wednesdays. He would deliver meal trays on Fridays until the schedule no longer needed to remind them who they were. No speeches, a stack of paper that behaved, work wearing its weekday clothes. On the way out, my daughter-in-law turned to me like a person getting used to the weight of her own name. We still want to be married, she said. Small, without spectacle. If we choose the courthouse and sandwiches, will you? I'll be there, I said. 2 pews back, even if there aren't pews. She laughed, a sound with color in it for the first time in weeks. Courthouse on a Thursday, she said. Backyard on Saturday, potato salad and a playlist, no registry. People can bring folding chairs if they want to feel helpful. Let me be a person, I said. I make good iced tea. Deal. We stood in the thin hallway light a moment longer, long enough to feel what the floor was willing to hold. That Saturday, the backyard learned the grammar of a smaller promise. A card table wore a white sheet and a jar of daisies. Vows came off index cards and didn't try to be taller than the people saying them. There were sandwiches and a bowl of cherries and a speaker that played the kind of songs old folks hum without realizing it. I set the ziti beside the potato salad and took a seat under the maple. No speeches, no DJ insisting everyone clap. Barbara touched my shoulder once in the way women who have been tired in the same ways know how to do. My son looked at me and didn't look away. When it was time to clear plates, the groomsmen and bridesmaids, thinned but truer, stacked chairs without being asked. She found me by the lemonade. Thank you for not making me disappear, she said. Thank you for choosing the door that kept you in the room, I said. We didn't hug. We let the air between us take the shape of something we might be able to carry next week. That night, the escrow inbox pinged like sensible rain. People sent photos of folded checks and quick notes that felt like a town nodding at itself. I knew you'd fix it. No hard feelings. Keep the 5, buy your boy books. We logged each one and returned each one anyway. A promise is a promise. The resource center sent a schedule. The counselor emailed a worksheet called What Money Is For. I printed it because paper still matters where I live. In the quiet after the backyard had learned how to be a lawn again, I sat at my kitchen table with the legal binder and a cup of tea that had outlived its heat. I slid the tab labeled Miracle Evidence to the back and made a new one with smaller letters. Miracle Repair. It held a copy of the apology, the escrow setup, the volunteer calendar, the counseling receipt, and a photo of a card table with daisies. Sometimes you need to see the before and after on the same shelf. Before bed, my phone trembled with a message from a donor named Grace, no relation to the one at the hospital desk who had taught me what compassion sounds like with a badge on. Refund received, she wrote. Proud of you for choosing the hard, honest thing. Love doesn't end when money does. I turned off the lamp. The house made the contented clicks old houses make when they remember their job is to stand. There is one more chapter to this, the kind that doesn't fit on a live stream. It takes months and grocery lists and Tuesday dinners to tell. It looks like time putting its arm around the truth to see if it will come along without dragging its feet. We'll get there. Tomorrow, I bring a casserole to the Family Resource Center and a pen to sign the first timesheet line. Sometimes repair starts as a sentence. If you keep speaking it, it turns into a life. 6 months is enough time for a calendar to learn your new handwriting. On the first Tuesday of the 6th month, I opened the binder I used to call Miracle, Evidence, and moved it to the back of the shelf. In front of it, I set the one labeled Miracle Repair. Inside, the apology post printed on plain paper, the escrow ledger balanced down to the nickel, a short email from the platform that said case closed, the volunteer schedules with check marks neat as stitches. The escrow ran its 90 days like a good watch. Some people wrote, keep the 5, buy your boy books. We sent their 5 back anyway and bought him a library card. Once in a while, a letter arrived with a recipe folded inside, as if kindness needed a second job. On Wednesdays, my daughter-in-law signs in at the hospital's Family Resource Center. At first, she counted hours like someone counting down a sentence. Then one afternoon, a father came in with a face that had used up its words. She found him a charger, a quiet corner, a cup with a lid that doesn't spill when your hands do. He thanked her by staring at the floor and remembering how to breathe. The next week, she learned the coffee machine's stubborn moods. The week after that, she learned the names of 3 social workers and which one knew how to conjure a motel voucher at 4:58 on a Friday. Last month, the supervisor asked if she could cover 2 paid shifts a week. You show up on time, the woman said. You don't make anyone smaller. My daughter-in-law texted me a picture of her badge. Her smile looked like a person taking their own pulse and finding a number they could live with. On Fridays, my son parks the car by the service entrance and carts trays from the kitchen to the floors. He stopped calling it volunteering after the second week. It's a route, he says now, like a man describing the map of something that finally makes sense. He is learning the choreography of doors that shouldn't be allowed to slam. He is learning how to say sir to a teenager's father and mean it. At home, a paper taped to their fridge reads what money is for. The counselor gave it to them at the first session, boxes for rent and light and food, and later, a 4th box nobody in our family ever met until now. They fill it with small amounts that make bigger ones if you don't touch them. On Sundays, they cook enough to last until Tuesday. On Tuesdays, they invite a neighbor who lives alone. Tuesday has become a sturdy day in their house. They married in the courthouse on a Thursday. 2 signatures, a kiss, a receipt for $32. On Saturday, we put folding chairs in the yard again and called it a reception because we decided reception means to receive, and that's what we were doing, receiving a smaller promise and letting it be exactly its size. I brought tea in a jar with lemon slices thin as glass. Someone made potato salad that forgot to be polite and tasted like a childhood I recognize. They danced in sneakers to a song only they could hear. When it was over, the bride carried the card table into the garage like a woman carrying her own future. Not precious, but hers. Barbara and I walk on Thursdays now, 2 mothers learning to let the wind be the wind. She says, I should have meant my rules harder, and I say, I should have meant my love less like a wallet. We trade small mercies like recipes. On good days, we laugh about the NICU flowers finding their right room. On bad days, we wave to the resource center windows and remember why kitchens have chairs. Church learned how to hold us. 2 pews back, just like I promised, I sing the hymn and keep my opinions under my hat. No one asks for speeches. Sometimes after the service, a hand finds my elbow and squeezes without needing a name. I think that's what forgiveness looks like in public. Small pressure, gentle return. The donors went back to their lives, the way rivers go back to their banks after a flood. Every so often a note arrives from a name I only know from a refund receipt. Your story made us talk to our kids about online giving, one wrote. We decided to keep an envelope by the front door for needs we can see. The letter had 3 $1 bills tucked inside, which I returned with a recipe for ziti and a line that said, "Make this for someone you love who thinks they don't deserve it." As for me, I kept one promise to myself and made a new one. The promise I kept: I don't fund their life. My money has a job, my porch light, my medicine, bus fare to the hospital when the car won't start, the birthday checks I write to children who send proper thank yous with stickers crooked on the envelope. The new promise: when help is needed, I offer verbs first: drive, cook, sit, listen. Dollars come last, and the receipt comes first. We have a room with chairs again. Once a month, we bring our papers to my attorney's conference table, which no longer needs to be a battlefield. It is just wood and water glasses and a clock that minds its own business. We go over what needs going over: escrow closed, counseling completed, volunteer hours logged, the budget living on the fridge without anyone policing it. We add one line that doesn't belong to any ledger: what we're grateful for that didn't cost money. Last time the list read: a neighbor's snow shovel, a nurse with good jokes, a Tuesday that tasted like a second chance. My grandson, who did not need a miracle after all, needed a library card and a pair of shoes that could take him to the park. He got both. We read on the porch now: dinosaurs, then space, then a book about construction equipment that insists everything is a friend if you know its name. When he visits the hospital to see his mother's office, he brings a little stack of stickers that say "Be brave" and hands them to the volunteer coordinator, like a donor with pockets full of sky. The saxophonist from the canceled band plays the farmer's market on Saturdays. The first time I passed his hat, he winked as if we shared a secret. Maybe we do. That music played at the right volume can make you believe in gentle endings. On the last page of my miracle repair binder, I slid a photograph of the backyard reception. Card table, daisies, folding chairs, the kind of light that happens by accident around 5 in the evening. I wrote 4 words under it with my husband's fountain pen because it makes the sentence behave. Small kept being enough. At night, when trains shoulder through town and draw their long, respectful line under the day, I sit a minute by the window and let the house remember me. I think about all the ways we try to buy miracles and how many of them are already paid for. By time, by work, by Tuesday dinners, by the cost of telling the truth where chairs can hear it. We did not get the miracle we tried to purchase at midnight. We got the kind you make at noon with receipts and apologies and a budget that finally knows your name. It doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. It grows. Thank you for walking with us to the end of this one. If any sentence here found you, leave yours below and let someone else borrow the light. And if you'd like to hear more stories about the ways families learn to hold both love and limits, you know where the porch light is.